Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan. Once again, and today we're going to be doing another comic book review. Today we're going to be looking at Mighty Morphin Power Rangers versus Godzilla Volume 1. Volume 2 is currently serializing. But I bought this a while back. I think at like two or so years ago, maybe less than that. I can't remember exactly. But it was a cool series. I like it, and I wanted to talk about it, right? So it's written by Cullen Bunn with Freddie Williams III at the art. With Andrew Dahlhaus and Joanna Natalie doing the colors and the lettering. I can't remember which one does which, but they're both important to, this book. In terms of publisher, I think this is by Boom Studios. They have the license. I think they recently announced that their run is going to end, which is kind of interesting. I think that their run was quite emblematic and significant to the MMPR franchise, so it's interesting that it's going to end soon, but I don't know too much information about that. The demographic for this book is teen, and the genres here are science fiction, hero, and of course multiverse type stuff, right? Multiverse isn't really a genre itself, but I think at this point it's kind of like its own specific like trope that kind of went above and beyond being just a trope, right? Or being just a cliche. It's kind of like a major aspect of stories, right? And in this case, it's not that big of a deal, but this is technically part of the Godzilla multiverse, right? So there you go. But it is ultimately a science fiction story with superhero elements to it, right? And in terms of adaptation, it does not have one. However, this would be a great animated movie. And I really think that if Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and the Power Rangers brand overall really wants to continue to be relevant, I think that animated stuff is probably the way to go. I mean, technically, that would no longer make it tokusatsu, right? But I don't think Americans care. Like, the American brand does not have to be like the Japanese brand, right? Because they're really not the same. But I mean, that might be heretical to say, right? It might be blasphemous. But I would honestly prefer if Mighty Morphin Power Rangers became like an animated thing over a live action thing, but that's just me, right? So I would like to see this animated in a movie format. Ratings wise, is a 4 out of 5. It's nearly perfect, but it has some issues that really knock it down for me, and that's mostly due with like the pacing of the story, and also kind of like basically this idea that they kind of blew their load in terms of like the big storytelling elements too quickly for my taste, right? So I'll talk about that in just a bit. So moving on from that, in terms of premise here, basically, Rita's crazy. She does something insane and ends up traversing the multiverse from her native, MMPR world down to Angel Grove in a different world where Godzilla rules, right? And because she goes there, the Power Rangers follow. And, well, now we have these crazy big fights against Godzilla and Godzilla-related characters. And it's really fun stuff. I really liked it. But the premise isn't really super, complex. Because ultimately, these basic crossover stories are just, how do we get the characters to fight each other? And then how do we make them fight something worse than them, right? So, I mean, ultimately, that's what you're signing up for. But it's quite great. I really, really enjoyed it, right? So, there you go. In terms of plotline here, like I said, it's very simple but very enjoyable. Basically, it starts with Tommy chasing Rita Repulsa down to this weird cave. She finds this stone, and she says that this powerful stone is going to help her traverse the multiverse far away from the Power Rangers so that she can dominate something without the Power Rangers interfering. However, Tommy followed her there, so he ends up being embroiled in her time or like space traveling shenanigans, and ends up being sent to Godzilla's universe alongside Rita, Goldar, Scorpina, and Finster, right? And so they land in this universe. The Rangers chase after them because, they have Tommy's signature, so they can use Zordon's teleportation powers to send them across universes, I guess. I mean, with the morphing grid, anything is possible, so that makes sense. And then, in this Godzilla universe, it turns out that Godzilla is king of monsters. He's ruling over Earth, and he's technically defending Earth from these invaders. And these invaders are the aliens of Planet X, or the Zillions, Xiliens, who send monsters down to fight Godzilla in order to try to weaken him because they ultimately want to conquer the planet, but Godzilla is not letting them, right? And so you're doing this convoluted, very Rita Repulsa-esque plan in order to try to weaken him, but it's not really working because Godzilla is ultimately the most powerful being on the planet, right? And so Tommy has to fight Godzilla because he thinks that it's a monster that Rita summoned, and it turns out that it's not. But, you know, we get to see this Mecha Godzilla versus Godzilla imagery thanks to the fact that the Dragon Zord looks like Godzilla, right? So it's really cool stuff. I really liked it. I thought this fight was pretty fun. And Tommy gets beat quite easily because Godzilla is just more significantly powerful than him, right? So Rita ends up capturing Tommy, and then she ends up teaming up with the aliens of Planet X, so it's the aliens. Then basically we get a little bit of information about this. You know, we learn about why they're doing this, we learn what's going on, and Rita never really thinks about using her spell to make the monsters grow, and I feel like that's a miss. So I'll talk about that more in the world building aspect and why maybe it didn't happen, but I really do think that it would have been cool to see that, but it just didn't happen, and it would have been interesting to mention that at this point in the story. Anyway, so the Power Rangers show up, they track Tommy down, and they end up fighting Godzilla again. They lose against Godzilla, and then Godzilla ends up fighting Gigan, who got summoned by the Zillions, thanks to Rita kind of forcing them to do so. And we get to see that although the Power Rangers lost, their Zords have healing ability, so it takes a while for them to heal, but they will eventually do so. So I have to wait it out. And during their battle, they actually managed to harm Godzilla with the Power Sword, right? So they managed to hurt him enough to slow him down. And it's a problem because Gigan now is taking advantage of that, right? And when Rita sees that there's a slight advantage here with Gigan, she manages to send in 2 monsters of her own, and she makes them grow, and they tag team against Godzilla. At this point, the Rangers realize, oh, Godzilla is not the bad guy. Godzilla is a protector. He's bad at his job because he destroys everything around him in order to do so, but they understand that Godzilla is ultimately on the side of the good guys, right? Or the humans in this case. And so they decide to team up with him. In order to show solidarity, they decide to summon the Power Sword again, but this time to use it as a way to charge up Godzilla. So they transfer this power over to him. It helps him heal, which is great. Godzilla understands that they're not enemies per se, so he teams up with them to fight against Gigan and the 2 monsters that Rita sent. However, at this point, Ghidorah shows up, right? And this is a problem because this causes the whole fight to shift again, right? And so they dispose of Gigan, and then Ghidorah is kind of the big bad monster, and it's really, you know, messed up, and they're fighting a lot, and Tommy manages to get free, and then he combines his Zord with the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, and they manage to beat Ghidorah alongside Godzilla. And then, of course, because Godzilla wants to be the only one that's powerful, he ends up turning against the Rangers, and so at that point, they decide to get transported back to their own Earth. And this is all good and stuff, but Rita actually manages to break the multiverse stone, and she basically gets stuck falling through universes. And we get to see a bunch of different Godzilla stuff. And, well, it seems like there's going to be another adventure, and of course we know that this is true because they're currently serializing it. And so, overall, it was very fun, but like I said earlier, I have an issue with the fact that Ghidorah shows up. Because I feel like, I understand the idea, right? Ghidorah is the most badass enemy of Godzilla. So we got to make sure that he is the one that they end up fighting at some point, right? But I feel like with this story, it's pretty understandable that it was going to be successful from the get-go. So blowing their load and having Ghidorah show up in the first arc of the story was not great. Because now, you know, what else is there? Like, I don't know what they're going to fight against in the current series, right? Also, I feel like Gigan was enough of a threat that they could have teamed up and fought against him, right? And the fact that they, you know, didn't, that they managed to beat him quite easily, or eventually they managed to beat him, is kind of annoying. Like, I feel like they really only needed to have one major monster happen and not have 2 of them, right? Because you know, Rodan isn't as awesome as Ghidorah. So there's no way that Rodan is going to be a problem in the next series, right? Unless, you know, Rita gets really crazy. It does something insane, right? So I don't know. That's it for the plotline. In terms of characters, I mean, we have Jason and Kimberly and Billy and Zach and Trini and Tommy. Alpha 5 and Zordon show up for a brief moment at the beginning and at the end of the story. Godzilla, of course, Gigan, Ghidorah, Rita, Finster, Goldar, Scorpina, and the Alien X dudes, right? However, the Alien X people all seem to be male, but in the second in the second issue, the cover has a female Alien X character that looks really badass and cool, and I'm sad that she wasn't a character in the actual series at all. So I don't know if that's going to be something that gets fixed later, or if it was just a thing based on like them wanting to make a cool female-centric cover, and then just realizing, oh, we don't actually have a female character inside the story. I don't know, but that was pretty disappointing because I was looking forward to seeing that female character because, you know, the reason I was interested in the series, besides the fact that I like both franchises, was because I saw that cover. And I thought that cover looked awesome. I wanted to find out more about the story, and then this character just never shows up. And that's kind of disappointing, right? Also, I understand the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers are the main, like, serious draw to the story, but I feel like other Rangers would have probably been more interesting to see in Godzilla universe. Like, maybe, like... Well, I mean, I would really like to see, like, Jungle Fury or Wild Force go against Kong, right? But something like, maybe the Dino Thunder Rangers, or, like, Overdrive, or maybe even Time Force, would have been more interesting to see with Godzilla than the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but I get that, you know, when it comes to Power Rangers, the first team is the one that everyone likes, right? I mean, I don't really like them that much, but I like Dino Thunder better. But I don't know. It is what it is. In terms of character work, we didn't really get too much. I mean, it's just Rita being crazy. Although her character design here was a little bit different from usual. Specifically in like how her like weird like metal tits were. You know, she has like the crazy rocket tit thing, and in this artwork it looks really great. I think it's really fun, but there really isn't too much in terms of characters. In terms of world building, I mean, the Zillions want Earth for some reason, so they send Titans to weaken Godzilla. And I'll talk about the thing that I mentioned earlier with Rita now, which is Rita has this ability to make monsters grow. And I know that the chant is make my monster grow, right? Emphasis on the my. But she can kind of lay claim to any monster she wants, right? So she could use this to make the Godzilla universe monsters grow, which would be crazy because they would make them like more powerful technically, right? If they're larger. And I feel like this was like the simplest way to make a Godzilla enemy powerful. If you make Gigan, you know, twice as large or 4 times as large or whatever, it would have been crazy, right? Like the scale would have been insane, but like that would have been like a really great way to maximize the danger that Gigan posed. And if you did that, you didn't have to bring in Ghidorah, right? I don't know why she didn't do this. I mean, that seems like the easiest, simplest thing to do, right? I can make monsters grow. There's monsters already here. Let me just make them grow instead. Especially because she clearly states it early on in the story. In the multiverse, all you have to do is find the right incantation to make any spell work. Or something along those lines. Basically, she said, it doesn't matter. I can use my magic anywhere as long as I figure out how to do so, right? Like, it is possible to do so. And so that means that she could have used her growing spell on any monster, and she just chose not to. And that's disappointing because that would have been way more interesting for a first storyline than immediately plopping Ghidorah in, right? But, I mean, I think I'm just beating a dead horse here, so I'll leave that alone. In terms of artwork and fan service, like I said, I mean, the artwork is great. I really love the style. I think it has this almost, like, rubber suit vibe to it that I really like. I think it's very well done. I really like it. Like I said, I mentioned Rita's rocket tit situation thing with her, like, weird corset / armor. I really like it because it's like ridiculous. Like they come out like a foot from her chest and it's fucking hilarious. Like I think that's so funny. However, I did notice that there was this like specific panel that was just really weird. And maybe it's like I don't know. It was like the Rangers show up to the Godzilla universe, and they're standing all, you know, in like a cool pose, and you're seeing like this Dutch angle of like them above where the angle of the camera is, and so you're basically centered on their crotch lines, right? And they all have like normal proportions. I mean, the style is a little bit weird, so they kind of look off, right? But not so off that it's like concerning or uninteresting. It's actually kind of cool, right? But because of the way that the angle is set up, and because of the perspective, I guess is the right word, and the eye line, you know, like the center line of the page, or the center line of the square that you're looking at for the panel for the comic book, the center line is like the crotches, right? And the only male character that had like crazy huge bulge in that art style was Zach. And that was just a bit weird to me. It seemed like odd. And I'm not really sure why. It might have been like of course the black guy has a bulge, or it might have been something else. I don't know. But I found that to be odd. Because like none of the other characters were like, you know, like had like sexy proportions. They were all pretty normal. It was just like the way that Zach specifically had like a giant bulge in this art style was really weird, because it was like across multiple panels, right? So it was odd. The other thing was that Trini's outfit was inconsistent across the 3 issues that I saw her outside of her, you know, costume. So she had these like interesting boots and these like yellow black pants or something, or yellow gray pants. And in the first issue, they're pretty separate, right? And then in later issues, it's just like her whole leg is just like these weird pant boot things that don't really match what they initially looked like. And so that was inconsistent. I didn't like that because I noticed it, right? Otherwise, I would have not cared, but it was odd. Otherwise, the artwork is really nice. There really is no fan service. I mean, it really depends on what you find attractive, right? But like, or like if you think any of this is too attractive, right? Or a bit naughty. I don't think any of it was, but I mean, there's definitely like, you know, bulges and, you know, Rita's rocket tits. So I mean, if you're a child, maybe you might not, you know, want to see that, but overall it's pretty mid, right? It's pretty fine. Ratings wise, 4 out of 5. Like I said, it's great, but I think I needed to breathe a little bit. Like it felt too fast. And then of course I have the big problem where I don't think Dora should have shown up in this volume, right? So that's basically all that I have to say about that. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and see you guys later.